So the printer's all set up and ready to go. It's good to go other than the software. Next comes, as I just said, the software. So now we go here. I'm going to open this up full screen. th3dstudio.com. Let's go there. And you can see this is their shop. First and foremost, well, let's go with knowledge base. So let's see, downloads. So here is their th3D firmware download. So this is the latest thing to download. I'm going to click on it and it's going to start downloading. You're going to notice that it is a 575 megabyte file. Yep, it is a really large file, but it has everything you need, from the 3D models that I used to actually generate, or that I used to print out the housings to use to connect it to my 3D printer, to the firmware, to the Arduino software needed to program the firmware, to all their other 3D models that you might need. Realistically, it just has everything you're going to need, so it's just a nice download to have in general. And then we're going to go back to what I just downloaded. Let's see, that says A8. So let's unzip this. All right. So while that's unzipping, and then we go back here. So now we go to the UFW R2A8 folder, go into here, and just to give you an idea, so there's installation guides, there's the firmware, there's EasyAble STL files, bed level files, extra stuff, other STL files. So let's just see, EasyAble, if we go with probe mounts, we go with Creality, CR10S. So here you go. This is the Volcano mount. So if you extract this and take a look at it, Volcano mount. So here, and I'll just open this up for a second and you'll see. So that should look familiar. That should be the blower duct for it. And you get the idea. So you could print these files out real easily and quickly. And if you didn't use the Volcano mount and you use the regular mount, there's an OEM mount that's used with the regular 3D printer head for the CR10, or you can use the E3D V6 mount or the E3D V6 clone. So they're there if you wanted to use them. All right, so now we'll go back to the main folder, open firmware Windows. So here we open up Arduino. Just allow access, it's just the Arduino stuff. So here we are again, we'll maximize it. The print's really big, so I'm going to go to Preferences, chain this back down to 14, click OK. Now we go to Configuration, and we scroll back down to Creality. So CR10S, because that's what I have, so I have an S5, so I uncomment that. If I go to the Volcano mount and uncomment that, so I'm going to leave all those alone, and now I'm just going to scroll down. We have to get past all the printer stuff. So now we're past the printer. So now I want to change this to be 5 because I prefer 5 points. Easy able edge, I'm going to do 50, so that way it probes differently. Don't want the heaters on, don't want to do any of this. You want to define baby stepping though. You do want that enabled because it's very nice to have. And I'll be honest, the rest of this stuff really is just not worth looking at right this second. So I'm going to File, Save. Then I'm going to go to Tools. It's set to Arduino Mega 2560. Port, I'm going to go to COM10. And I'm just going to go at this point to compile and see what happens. And again, this is going to take a little while, so don't fret if it looks like it's doing nothing. Just give it a minute. Obviously, the slower your computer is, the longer it's going to take to do all this. And now it's writing it to the Arduino. This will take a minute. Don't worry about it. And it's continuing to program. It'll take a little while to program it, so don't be surprised if it takes some time. And now it's done. It's done programming it, and at this point we will, I believe, we will go to the serial monitor, and this will allow us to see if it's connected. You have to change the baud rate to 115/200, and now you should see the text that it connected to the printer, and you should start seeing it scroll the temperatures and other things. But now you want to give it a couple of commands. First, you want to do not an S500, you want M500. No, you want to send an M502, and then you want to send an M500. That resets all the settings in the printer and then stores them so that they're all back at the default values. You can close the serial monitor window. Now that the printer is programmed and all set up and ready to go, the next thing we have to do is we have to set up the printer for the bed leveling. In order to do that, you need a piece of paper. You use the piece of paper to actually set it up and get it correct. So the first thing to do is you tell the printer to home the X. You can do that through the control panel or through the or through some software if you would like. Next thing you do, you home the Y. And then home Z. Now what you want to do is the printer, if you look, it says -5 or +5, so it's +5 too high right now, so you want to go down 5 millimeters. So I'm going to adjust it down to be 0. And in this case, my printer isn't really catching, it's not quite set up right. So this should technically be basically catching right on the printer. So if I go to Control, Go down to motion, go to Z probe offset. Here it's set to minus 1.955. So if I go down just a little bit more, and now if I go over and look at my paper, it's still not catching really, so I'm going to go down just a little bit further. And you can see it's starting to catch. I can feel it. There's a little bit of resistance on the paper. So I'm going to just go down one more to make it 2. Hit OK. And then go back up to control. And then I'm going to go down to store settings. So that stores that setting, and it'll remember that it was at minus 2. So I can pull this out now. And now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to send it a command to make it actually do this. So I'm going to do the bed leveling. So I'm going to do G29, and it's going to go through, and you'll see it leveling the bed. So it's going to probe at each one of the places throughout the bed. And remember, I did a 5x5 grid, so it's going to probe 25 places. Each place it probes, it's going to probe it there twice, because one time it's quick, the second time it slows it down a little bit to be more accurate. Now we're halfway through. So now that it's done, you can see that it went through and it saved what the settings were. So I'm going to copy and paste it into my text file. And then I'm going to go through and delete up to it, and then delete the rest of it. And so now that's my bed leveling. It gives you an idea of exactly how level the bed is. In this case, mine's about 1.5 millimeters difference from one side to the other. Not incredibly level, but the thing to keep in mind here is that I have solid bed mounts, and I'd rather have it be solid bed mounts, because for me, I don't want the bed moving back and forth, or being changing adjustment while it's running. That's one of the reasons I got rid of the springs, because I just don't like that setup. Anyway, the printer will adjust for how off it is. That's only 1.5 millimeters. Honestly, that's not a whole lot, given the fact that you're talking about a bed that is 500 millimeters by 500 millimeters. Okay. So at this point, everything's set up and ready to go. You've got the printer set up and ready to go. The only thing you haven't really done is made sure that it heats up and works well from that standpoint. So, there's one way to do that, is you can use your software and tell it to heat up. So I turned on the hot end, and it's going to 210 degrees right now. And you can see that the hot end is now going up in temperature. And actually, one thing that I haven't done yet is I haven't put any filament into the printer. So because I haven't do that and I'm heating it up, I'm going to do that right now. Great. Hopefully that won't get tangled. I'm gonna move you, little guy, for now. And stick my filament on here. Straighten you out to make you easier to go in. Feed that into there. Feed that into the printer. It always has problems going into the Bowden tube. I'm gonna feed all this into my printer. Make sure that that is nice and good. My printer is now up at 210 degrees, roughly speaking. Actually, I really need to make that be a little less severe. So, let's see if I can get this to feed in anymore. I'm gonna actually raise the printer 10 more millimeters. And I'm gonna keep feeding in and you can see that filament is now coming out of the printer. I'd say that's working fairly well. So I'm gonna turn the hot end off for right this second. And if I look at the temperature plot, you can see that the set temperature went down and the hot end is slowly going to decrease in temperature. Alright, so I'm going to remove that print and I'm going to go to import, another calibration block, and load that in. So the first thing you're also going to want to do is in your software, you're going to want to make sure that, and I'm going to remove that little bit of plastic. You're going to want to make sure that your software has been updated to recognize that it's now at a 0.8 millimeter nozzle. So you can see here my nozzle diameter is 0.8 millimeters. Ignore the rest of the stuff. This is just the setup that I use. Your settings may be very different. Click OK. I'm going to also layer, leave it at 0.2, click prepare to print. And it says it's going to take 20 minutes. So I'm going to hit begin printing. So one of the things that we need to go over is your software settings. So with this now, if we go and look at the installation guide and check out the Easy Able, and we take a look at this. And you can read through this entire document. It's good information, good knowledge. You can see more about what we talked about. You can see that it says 2 millimeters higher than the nozzle. Here's a pinout for how to connect everything and such. You may have to play with the end stop switch to flip the wiring and such. Just play with it a little bit. I had mine set up properly before I went through it. But when you go through all this, one of the things you have to do is your G code for the printer. So actually in the folder there's something called starting G code. So this is very simple coding. There's little bits that you may or may not want to do. You know, this should work relatively well for the CR10 S5 or any of the CR10s or even the Enders and such. You know, with that being said, go through, take a look at it, get an understanding of what everything does. Things like the M117 code that you see here, all that does is write text out on the display screen. So you don't necessarily need to have that. You know, me personally, if I go and actually look at my starting code or my code and my scripts, you see I just have an M75. Then, you know, I set the temperature for the extruder. I tell it to wait until the extruder gets to that temperature. Then I reset the extruder number. Let's see, M84. I really don't know what the M84 does. Oh, disables the motor. So that disables your extruder motor. I do the G28 is what does the homing of all the axes, and then if you do a G28Z, that homes just the Z axis. G29 is the auto bed leveling. One of the things that I should really add in here is the M190 command. And all this does will make it wait until the bed gets to the proper temperature before starting to print. So that's the M190. The G4S10 just tells it to move a little bit. The G92 resets the extruder value. And then the G1s make it print a single line at the front edge of the printer. G92 resets the extruder. And the G1 tells it to move 1 millimeter high. And then it starts printing. And that's the start G code. The end G code, you don't have to worry about. It should be the same no matter what it is. And let this start printing. In the meantime, this is gonna stop. So stop recording. Yay! I wonder where this saved the file. $896 megabytes. Alright, so I'm going to close this. No, I'm not going to close that. And I'm just going to let this go. We'll see what this print looks like. How much longer do I have? So now you can see the printer's printing the first layers. You can see now that the part cooling fan has now turned on. And now I'm just going to let it go. And now that the printer's done printing, we remove the print. Not too bad. Decent layer to layer adhesion. Everything turned out pretty nice. Overall, a pretty decent print. So there we have it. We've gone through, we've set up the printer, we've added in a new hot end, we've done the auto bed leveling, we've gone through how to set up your software to do it, we've gone through how to reprogram your 3D printer so that way your printer now recognizes the new bed leveler, it notices how the new extruder is going to work and the placement on your printer. And we've done a quick and simple test print that came out lovely. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this series of videos and stay tuned. Maybe I'll do something else. I don't know. Let me know in the comments, let me know in the post, or just message me. Honestly, I'd love to have some feedback, and let me know if it worked for you, or if you have problems or questions, feel free to ask me. I will gladly help you if I can. That being said, take care.